Welcome to the September edition of Load Smart's First Look, a monthly series that dives into the freight markets and the latest technologies that are disrupting the supply chain. Today, we have a good friend of mine, Brent Hutto, Chief Relationship Officer at Truckstop.com. Brent, thanks so much for joining.
Oh my gosh, it's an honor to be here, man. It's just with all the new things and great things Load Smart's doing in the market, it's just great to be here to be a part of it.
So I'm fascinated, and I want to dive right in because I want to make sure we have time to talk a little bit about two things, really, which is market and Truckstop obviously has really unique visibility and look into both the supply and demand of the freight that's moving through your platform and the carrier side. So I want to make sure we dive into that. But also second is technology and really the perspectives and experiences you've had with scaling the digitization of your platform. But first we want to dive in and really I'll leave this pretty open. But market-wise, it's been a wild year with the pandemic and the shift of consumer behavior that's really thrown freight markets out of whack. I'm curious to see what you or hear what you guys are seeing at Truckstop.
Yeah, well, I've been alive for 53 years, and you see a lot of ups and downs. And the old saying is, "Now you live in interesting times." And certainly, bud, we are living in some interesting times. I mean, who would have thought that we could have seen something more different than or better than 2017, 2018, that was a 40-year high in an industry? I mean, that was remarkable. I mean, people set their careers and their retirements on how well they did in 2017 and 2018, and whoever thought that something would exceed that. And we are at that point and have been for the last 7 or 8 weeks above 2017, 2018, 40-year historical highs, which is remarkable considering where we were in March and where the marketplace had gone from. It was cruising along at what I say better than normal rates anyways, or better than normal volumes and rates, where we were at about $2 a load and about 400,000 or 500,000 loads every day on Truckstop.com. That's our platform. And so, that's a pretty healthy, and it was like that all the way through 2019 as well. And then, of course, we got to the pandemic and the quarantine happened. We had a huge surge, which everybody saw. But that was kind of like a fear reaction, and then we had the most incredible cliff you've ever seen in your life, where it literally over 2 weeks went from 700,000 loads on Truckstop in a 24-hour period down to 164,000.
Wow.
An unbelievable drop. Rates went from above $2 down to $1.60. We had truckers lining up in DC saying there's price collusion, which of course the data will show you that's never happened. It doesn't happen in a competitive market-driven marketplace. But what happened after that, nobody could have predicted. And I think, Jim, the thing to look at and to consider, because we're in that market where all we see these indicators, is that nowhere in the history of man has an entire country, much less an entire world, all worked together to solve one problem. Now, granted, many other countries in the world did not fare as well as the United States did, but the United States economy was already very, very healthy. So this rebound, it wasn't a V rebound, it was a super V. And in the economic world, that means it went down and came straight back up. Now, super V means it went like an outlier. It just exploded, which is what it's done. It went from a bottom of about April 17th to 164,000 loads to the last 4 straight weeks. It's been over 800,000 a day on Truckstop.com, and the market pressure has gone from about 30, which is the normal, or actually below 30 when we had the quarantine and the cliff, to above 100. It's hit historic highs. The market demand index, the pressure in the market, has hit historic highs 4 straight weeks in a row, and that's over a 25-year period, which it just blows your mind how much this market has come back to benefit the carrier mostly and the broker once rates can get adjusted.
The volatility has been something I certainly, and I haven't been I've been in this industry for 12, 13 years now.
Oh, well, yeah, I know. Yeah, you're an expert.
It is nothing that I have seen, and in terms of what you talked about, which was the sharp ascent, and then before you knew it, the bottom fell out, and it dropped with in a shorter period that it rose. But it's fascinating. So 700,000 loads down to 160,000 within a period of 2 to 3 weeks, and then currently the last 4 weeks above 800,000 loads that are on the Truckstop.com platform.
And hasn't ebbed off. It's not a plateau yet. The interesting thing about this is that here's the thing that blows and should blow your viewers' mind is that we're still not at the demand for volume of freight that we were in the beginning of 2020. So in the beginning of 2020, all of 2019 and 2020, we were at about 65 million loads per month. And that's the entire marketplace. It's about 750, 800 million loads in all of freight in North America. By the way, 50% of all the freight in the world moves in the connected 48. So it's a massive marketplace. But usually the market's about 65 million loads a month. We're still, this past month in July, we're only at 59 million.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I was speaking to another industry insider today, and we talked about some of the shift in some of the shipper behavior that was prior of really running a supply chain on kind of a lean philosophy, but risk management wasn't necessarily the primary focus of running their supply chain. So you see, somewhat of a shift from extremely lean to getting caught off guard, and now potentially is building up inventories that might be able to sustain, which, to your point, kind of looking at Q1, if inventories really are built up, that obviously has an impact on domestic freight markets in a different direction. I want to spend some time certainly talking about tech or freight tech, but Truckstop.com, definitely one of the leading platforms and public capacity platforms, and you guys certainly cater to a variety of different carriers and with multiple different products. But you guys entered into this digital load booking journey and launched Book It Now last year, I believe. And so I'm curious to hear, looking back the last 12 months, how has this journey evolved? How is the adoption amongst both your carrier partners and broker partners, and even if there's any learnings that you have?
Yeah, no doubt. Well, lots of great questions we can dig into there. So let me just take the first one, which is in technology, it's said that it's not the big that eat the small, it's the fast that eat the slow. And so you've got to be fast. Freight velocity is very, very important. The ease of using a system is very, very important to the users of the system, because time, as we all know in freight transportation, is money. And being able to provide the right experience, the right opportunity for those to be able to view freight and to be able to transact freight is paramount. Now, we all know that this marketplace technology's been being adopted in lots of different areas and being utilized, and certainly the transparency of information that we were at the Truckstop.com was a part of when we started in 1995. We've been cloud since even before cloud was a word. That the idea of that process has created an opportunity for technology to continue to revolutionize what goes on in freight transportation. And we as a platform recognized 5 or 6 years ago, as other sort of connected type network marketplaces, the way in which you buy and move stocks now is completely automated. The way we all know, where we all book and move on transportation on planes, the way that personal transportation moved when Uber came in and revolutionized the taxi cab industry, that was coming to transportation freight, because the last inefficient thing that you can move out of it is the manual process. And the manual process, and remember, notice I said the manual process. I'm not talking about taking the relationship out of it, because you can't. There's too many moving pieces and parts. There's too much that goes on that you can't take the human relationship out of it. I think that would put more risk into it than it would be worth. But the idea of automating this was a necessary conclusion in a marketplace that has hundreds of millions of transactions that go on in it. And so that was the whole idea on looking at a dynamic marketplace that's already transactional. How do you make it more efficient so the players that play in it, the brokers, the carriers, the shippers that move their goods in it can actually get a better benefit out of it. And everybody inside of it can be enabled to grow their business.
Awesome. I'm with you. Again, Brent, thanks. This is awesome. Really appreciate you joining, and would love to do this sometime in the future again. So thanks again.
Happy to help anytime, man. We're here to help everybody succeed.